I felt so terrible, Evangeline. You turned to stone for me, and then you brought me here so that I could get a fresh start, and all this time I've walked around knowing that I don't deserve any of your kindness. I'm so sorry. I felt so guilty and so ashamed, and for so long I've wanted to tell you, but I've been terrified you'd hate me. Once Upon a Broken Heart, Stephanie Garber.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses.
Our emotion that we're going to get into today is confessions. This goes a little bit with a guilt, because usually a guilt compels a confession. If you're going for like a love confession, it is a strong emotion that compels a confession.
We did cover guilt a year ago, so if you're interested in diving deeper into that episode is available. Today, we are talking more about this interpersonal confession, one person confessing to somebody else. We're not really talking about the confessing to a crime. We'll probably do an episode on interrogation techniques at some point. But today we're talking about one character confessing of their own free will to something to another character.
This could be something a secret that they've hidden that they're finally confessing. Like I mentioned earlier, a love confession. It can be, I've been lying to you this whole time and I'm really sorry. There's lots of reason to confess to another character.
As far as your storytelling, your story structure, confessions might be the answer to a question of how do I introduce this twist? You have a character confess that they're actually the true bad guy. How do I stop the bad guy without the good guy killing them? You can get the bad guy to confess in front of a microphone he doesn't know is there and tell the whole audience that really he stole the song.
Confessions also have the potential to create a lot of drama between the good guys. You have one person who's been holding on to a secret because they're worried how their other hero companions are going to view them. So they're trying to present themselves, and then finally it gets to a boiling point where they have to release that information. And the drama comes from the other people trying to process and accept this new, potentially unnerving or bad information.
You can also throw in a false confession by a bad guy in order to have them create drama amongst the good guys. There is a confession in Breaking Bad where Walter gives a false confession of how he's been his brother-in-law's chemist for his meth empire when really it's his own guilt all along. He's confessing to something small so that he can incriminate someone else with the big evil of the story.
Overall, when it comes to a confession, it is important to set it up correctly. The audience should expect it. They may not always expect the outcome of it, but they should expect that something is coming.
One character can be giving body language whenever a certain topic is brought up that makes them uncomfortable, and nobody really understands why. You can use it to reveal the twist, but a not so great example of this is Zootopia. Because we didn't expect that twist, it was a little too out of the blue. We didn't expect that confession of, oh no, I'm the sheep and I'm just sowing chaos for the fun of it. That was just a little too out of the blue. Helping your audience expect it ahead of time will make that land in a place so much easier. Part of setting it up so that the confession scene is acceptable and makes sense is having a trigger immediately before the confession. We know that this character is holding a secret. Something has to happen in order to push the character over the edge into confessing.
In Tangled, when they're about to drown, and he's like, my name isn't Flynn Rider, it's Eugene Fitzherbert. It's that kind of dramatic, oh, something's about to happen, we're about to die, somebody should know the real me. So I'm actually Eugene Fitzherbert. And then she turns around and confesses that she's like, yeah, I have magic hair that glows when I sing.
So there are two basic kinds of triggers. There's the something is about to happen, and I want to get this out before the world blows up. Or something just happened. We just barely survived the sinking of the Titanic, and I need to confess my love to you.
Generally, these scenes with a confession follow a very specific recipe. You don't have to, but you should at least know this recipe before you try to write one of these scenes. Almost always, a confession starts with a declaration that heavy information is incoming. It's that we need to talk. I need to tell you something. Yeah? Is it about the ice cream last week?
The next step is a stalling or a minimizing of what's about to happen. Well, no, I mean, it's nothing really. I just thought that maybe you'd want to know, but it's not that big a deal.
And then there's the pre-apology apology. I'm really sorry. I didn't want you to be mad at me, so I hid it from you. For what?
The next tends to come the backing out. You know what? Never mind, it was a bad idea. You're not leaving until you say what you came to say.
And now it is too late. I broke the vase.
There is an immediate knee-jerk reaction after that very tiny confession. Often, this knee-jerk reaction is going to be what the confessing character feared the most, and this is why they didn't want to say it in the first place. What? That was you? I yelled at my dog for that.
And then you have the repeated apology. I said I was sorry.
How the characters move from here is really dependent on how mature the characters are and how close their relationship is. So there is an acceptance or a distancing of I can't forgive you for this, if it's near the beginning, middle-ish of the book, or a, you know what, we're past it, we've got bigger fish to fry, if it's closer to the end of the book, and if you have slightly more mature characters.
And of course, there is no set necessity for this reaction. It partly depends on what you need out of the story. So even if it is towards the end of the book and they do have a strong maturity level, but that confession was something very integral to one of the characters' traumatic backstories. And it's the other person saying, I'm really sorry. I think I had something to do with your wife's death. Then even if they are at that point in the story where it's, we need to get past this, if why you're doing this confession is to create that drama between the characters, you don't have to have them get past it right away. You can have them say, I don't want to look at you, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to be near you. Give me some time. And then you have some extra conflict going into the final battle, and they aren't sure that they can trust this other person anymore.
Fingers crossed when they're separated, drama happens. Something that could have been fixed if they were together, but puts both of them in a world of hurt when they're apart. So we do have a couple of tools in your tool belt to keep in mind as you are writing this type of confession scene. The first one is about the choices you make prior to sitting down to write it. Most importantly, whose point of view are you going to use when you write this scene?
Always make it the more interesting. What is going to be more interesting for the scene? Is it going to be the internal thoughts of the confessor as they debate themselves whether or not they want to get this information out? Or is it going to be the confessee and their internal reactions to hearing the confession?
So if I am the bad guy and Lee is trying to get me to confess on tape in front of everybody that I am about to give my villain monologue speech of taking over the world, it would be more interesting to show it from Lee's point of view than my own, because she knows other stuff that's happening that my character does not.
My only counter to that would be your point of view would be more interesting. If you are sitting there the entire time trying to figure out why on earth I'm trying to get you to confess to villainy. Like, if I am betraying you in that moment, trying to get you to confess to this, that would be a more interesting point of view.
And that is all woven into how to create suspense between characters and how to choose the point of view. This is a moment that you really have to take that into account.
Another thing to remember when you're writing one, like we mentioned earlier, there needs to be some kind of setup. We need to know that a confession is owed in some way. Because out of the blue confessions, whether they are love confessions or I did this terrible thing confessions, if they are not set up, they're either awkward or feel like a Deus Ex Machina.
That's probably my least favorite moment in the TV series Person of Interest, is I felt like the actress was done with the show. And so they had this ordeal where she confesses her love to him and then she dies immediately. It was uncomfortable because they never had any real romantic affection. There was a mutual respect kind of thing going on between them. And I think it was they were going to get there. But when she decided to leave or her contract was up or whatever, I didn't actually look into the background. But it was just a very weird and awkward confession because we didn't see it coming. We weren't holding our breath waiting for this confession to happen. The last thing to keep in mind when you are writing these confessions is more often than not, you're going to want it to be much later in the story, maybe 2/3 of the way through. This might lead into your darkest moments. This might be the twist that we're looking to set up before the finale. These confessions, if you do them too early, we don't have enough connection with the characters. We don't understand the true value of the confession that's happening.
And often you weren't able to set it up correctly for the confession to actually mean anything. And in a lot of cases, these confessions are most useful because they show character growth. We as the reader may know this secret early on in a book, and we are there with a character as they hold on to it the entire time. And we can see how they change from being very guarded, very close about it, to finally releasing that information. So we get to see the growth of finally trusting somebody else with whatever it is.
And with that, I'm going to have to confess something to you. The only way I can ever write a half-decent confession scene is I always have to
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.